Well, it's a little late, but it is still January 2024, so I reckon I can quickly squeeze in my predictions for what's going to happen with watches this year with a straight face. See me after the intro and we'll get into it. Hi, I'm Pete McConville, and this is my channel where I talk about, think about, overanalyze, and just geek out on watches far more than they probably deserve. If that sounds like your bag, keep on watching, and if you like it, do the whole like, subscribe thing at the end. Okay, so these are my ideas for what I think we can look forward to in 2024. Prediction number one. Absolutely obvious. Everyone else has said it. Prediction one, we're going to see a continuation of watches being smaller than we've previously seen. So where a watch was 40, it's going to be 38. Where it was 38, it's going to be 36, 37. Some of these watches could go down as low as 32, 34 even. So that's... Everyone else has said that, so you don't need me to be telling you that as well. So therefore, you know what? I'm going to give you a little bonus prediction. Prediction 1A. We're going to start seeing larger watches as well. You see, and I'm going to do a whole video about this later, but very quickly, something is always trendy. There is always a dominant trend. For that to be true, what has to happen is as one trend is peaking and that peak period takes 4 to 5 years, then the next trend, the counter trend, must be beginning. It must be in its introduction, perhaps even in its rise phase. We have definitely hit the peak period of small watches. This peak period is going to last 4 to 5 years. So we'll continue to get small watches, and that will be the things that most people want to buy for the next 4 or 5 years. But the reality of how trends work means that the large watch counter trend must be starting about now. And so I predict, and you can see elements of this already with some pundits like the guys from Fratello who were talking about the fact that watches are getting smaller and celebrating that, whilst at the same time buying 44mm Breitlings and Panerais for themselves. There's a classic case of the mismatch between the trend that they talk about hitting one point, but the trend that they're actually living being in advance of that. And as I said, this is quite common. So I think you're going to see some brands picking up on that and starting to release larger watches than you might have expected them to, because they're looking ahead and saying, we need to be ready for 2027, 2028. And that means bigger watches. Okay, trend number two. This has been going on for a little while, but I think we're going to start seeing it accelerate even more. And that is a move away from mid-century modern, or as I've heard some people call it, I have called it myself, mid-century mediocre. Mid-century modern started sometime around 1950, went through to sometime around 1965, 1966, and it was a period of design where heavily influenced by World War II methods of production and ergonomics and industrial capability and all that sort of thing. It was all about stripped down, easy to make, easy to understand, easy to manufacture, not complex designs, a kind of minimalism combined with some new fancy techniques for metal bending and all that sort of stuff. And out of that, you got these very plain looking, very utilitarian, a little bit kind of futurist militarism going on during this time. That has been the predominant fashion for the last, I'm going to say, probably 7 or 8 years. That trend is now moving out of its peak period and into its decline period. That doesn't mean it's going away. It just means it's not necessarily going to be what people are really focusing on. And I think the trend that's coming next is really any time period other than mid-century modern. I think there's going to be a bit of a brawl this year over, is that going to be pre-World War II or is it going to be post baby boomer 1967, 68 through the 70s. My bet is that it's going to be more that second part, that what we're going to see is more and more watches coming out that reference very late 60s, early 70s style watches. So a lot of chunky indices, odd shaped cases, asymmetrics, all that sort of stuff. I think we're going to see a lot more of that, and yay, I'm all here for it. I always found mid-century modern to be a little bit bland and uninspired, a little bit phoned in, and I'm really looking forward to a period of a little bit of flamboyance, a little bit of art, and I think we can look forward to some much more interesting watches. Still looking backwards, still looking at retro, but to a far more interesting time. Along with that move from mid-century modern, I think we're also going to see an increasing speed in the move away from pure tool watches. I think this is kind of related. At the same time that people were getting into watches, as the watch industry and the watch sort of enthusiast area sort of exploded, mid-century modern is a nice safe place to start. It's very inoffensive. It's often called timeless, mainly because it's never completely out of fashion. There's not enough in it for you to sort of be revolted by. So it's okay all the time. But I think as people have started, and with that aesthetic also came the idea of the tool watch, came the idea of the dedicated diver, the dedicated Flieger, the dedicated chronograph. And I think those two things went hand in hand. It was easy to get excited about a pretty straightforward design that didn't really try to do too much. And at the same time, you could justify that decision by calling it a tool, by saying it was a dive watch or a Flieger or whatever it was. I think as we're also getting ready to move away from that mid-century modern design aesthetic, the community is also maturing to the point where it's happy to buy watches just on the basis that they are watches that make us happy. And that means I think increasing numbers of people are going to be happy, ditching the idea of having to support the thing that they're buying as a tool. They're going to get more and more comfortable with the idea that their watch is just a piece of jewelry. And with that, they're going to get more and more comfortable with buying dress watches or watches whose function is the form, where the only purpose of that watch is to make you look and feel good. And that, again, has been happening for a couple of years, but I think it's really going to accelerate in 2024. Sticking with watch design, I think another thing that's been happening, went through the introduction, we're probably still in the introductory phase of this trend, which is true gender-free watches. And when I mean true gender-free, what I mean is the idea that watches today can mix and match masculine and feminine cues. So far, we've only had what I'd call a partial gender-free revolution, in that watch companies have felt comfortable making watches which were clearly once historically designed for men, making them a little bit smaller and perhaps putting a splash of pink on them to feminize them a little bit. So they'll take something that's fundamentally masculine and then make it feminine for females. So it will be in the smaller sizes and that sort of thing. I think what we're going to start seeing, in fact, we have started seeing, Breitling's been a bit of a leader here, is the reverse. And that is things which were clearly historically coded feminine for women now being put into watches that are a masculine size, that sans the diamond markers or diamond indices or the diamonds in the bezel would have been a man's watch. These are watches which are clearly designed for people with larger wrists, likely to be biological males, but with diamond bezels, but with diamond markers, that sort of thing. I reckon, as I said, we started seeing this a little bit in 2023. Breitling did this with very late last year with one of their Navatimers. We've seen at the recent Golden Globes, I think it was, or the Emmys, I can't remember which one it was, a lot of men turning up wearing watches with diamond bezels, diamond markers. Might not be your thing. You might hate it. That's fine. I'm going to say this is a trend that we're going to see a lot of this year. Okay, so getting away from watch design and stuff, now we're going to talk about how you wear your watches. I think 2024 is going to be the year when double wristing of a smart device and your watch becomes routine. If not routine, something that is so common, it goes unremarked. I've been doing it myself for about 3 or 4 years, but have noticed I am unusual. Towards the middle of last year, perhaps with the latest update to the Apple Watch, where a lot of people really liked the new Apple Watch but weren't ready to give up their mechanical wristwatch, people forced themselves to start doing the double wristing thing. And I suspect that pretty much everyone who's tried it has found that the world did not stop spinning on its axis. They found that cats and dogs did not start living together in sin. They have found that the world has continued to go on pretty much as it did before they double wristed. And so I predict that in 2024, that trend is going to become quite normal. Okay, so my final prediction, which I think is prediction number 6, if I've kept count, is about the industry and what we're going to see. Okay, again, utterly predictable, utterly conventional. We're going to start seeing it harder to sell watches. We're going to start seeing some discounting. But what I'm going to predict is that the brands today are not the brands of 5 years ago. That the environment, the context has changed. That 5 years ago, with the world as it was, if a company would only ever sell to ADs, the ADs would have a lot of stock. If the ADs got caught out, they would dump that stock at huge discounts. That's simple. Okay. Often there was a distributor in the middle of that making things even worse because they had stock as well as the ADs that they were trying to get rid of. Fast forward 5 years, and what we have is a fundamentally different environment. Pretty much all the brands have now got rid of their distributors. So there's a whole part of the market gone, a whole collection of watches that used to get dumped at places like Joma Shop. They largely don't exist. Those third-party distributors really only exist in, frankly, small markets like mine in Australia. They're very, very rare in Europe or the US. 2, a lot of brands now have their own ADs and their own boutiques and their own websites that they sell through. So that's going to have a really interesting effect on how they deal with this. 3, during COVID, a lot of brands downsized and sacked huge portions of their workforce and have not been recruiting. You've been hearing over the last 2 years all these stories about brands struggling because they couldn't meet demand, because they couldn't get the watchmakers. Well, you know what? Now they'll just stop trying to get more. They're not under the same pressures that they were back 5 years ago, that they have to keep making and they have to keep selling because they've got this massive workforce they have to keep busy. They're coming off an environment where they have not had enough workers. They got rid of a lot of their older staff. They did not have enough new staff in, and now they'll simply not recruit to those vacancies. So what that means is they simply won't make the watches that they would have previously had to just keep churning out. Talking to some people in the industry that in turn talk to watch part suppliers, so component suppliers to multiple brands, they are reporting that brands have slashed their orders from their producers. That people that make hands and crowns and cases have had their orders for over a year past. Those orders have shrunk, often potentially by up to 70 or 80%. So in the past, in an environment like this, the watch companies had to keep producing. They had to keep selling to their distributors, to their ADs, and those ADs would then dump. That is not the context anymore. There will still be some of that. Not every brand is smart. Not every brand is as agile as it would like to be. But the reality is brands don't have to play by the old rules. You are going to certainly see discounts, but they're going to be more sporadic. They'll be market by market, potentially shop by shop, as individual ADs get caught out. But I don't think we're going to see the same systemic. I expect to get 20 to 30% no matter where I go on this brand. I think that's going to be pretty unlikely. And prediction number 7 or 6A, even when one of the ways that big brands are going to cope with this and still produce new watches is they're going to take a play from the micro brand playbook. And that is what you're going to see is increasing number of brands play. They're not going to do limited editions because they know limited editions are kind of on the nose. So what they're going to do is you're going to see a lot of online or e-commerce exclusives. You're going to see a watch come out that you really like in the colorway that you really like. But then when you go to look at it, it's going to be online only and you have to pre-order it. And the brand is not going to make 10,000 of those and hope that they can sell them. Instead, the brand is going to have it on pre-order for 3 or 4 months. You're going to make your order. It will then make as many as was pre-ordered, maybe plus 5%. And then that's it. That'll be it. They'll never tell you it's a limited release. They'll never tell you it's only available for a short period of time. They might sell 10, they might sell 10,000, no idea. What they will do is at the end of that run, however many they sell, they'll tell you it was a sellout and a massive success. They'll also do the same thing through their boutiques. One of the keys for that is they don't have to take risks, exactly like the old micro brand people did. They can basically build to order. They can sell at full whack. They're not exposed to having these things leak onto the secondary market. From their point of view, it's a massive win. From our point of view, it's sort of a mixed bag. We do still get new product. You still can buy it. You're not necessarily placed under any pressure to get it now. But then on the other hand, things will not hang around in the inventory for long. They'll come up, they'll be in the inventory they'll be in catalog for a year or so and then just quietly go away. So I think we're going to see more. Some brands have been doing this for a year or two. I think this is going to be a standard play that pretty much every brand does or starts doing. So anyway, they're my predictions for 2024. What are yours? Do you think mine suck? Do you think that they're right, but you wish they weren't? Are there other things that you would like to see as trends? All that sort of stuff. Put it in the comments below and we'll see each other later. I've been Pete McConville. See you later. Bye.